Hello everyone, I'm YK2012, founder of the Upland Guide, and I'm here with Upland's co-founder and co-CEO, Idan Zuckerman. Thank you very much for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me. We have a lot of things going on in Upland. We've got a big announcement coming up soon. If you want to talk about that, that's great, but if you don't, I totally understand. But we are here to talk about not only the UIP1 proposal, but also Upland's economy, a little bit about the vision of Upland. We're going to talk about decentralization as well. And the first thing that I want to kind of talk to uh, the first thing I want to talk to my followers and everyone watching is that if you're just an average player and maybe you own a couple of properties, maybe you're a new Uplander or someone who's pro and you haven't really been involved in Upland for too long, I think that this discussion is going to be extremely valuable to you because I'm going to try and pick Dunn's brain and try and understand the long-term vision and where Upland is going. I believe that people who are able to understand that will be able to adapt their strategy and what they want to accomplish in this game. And I think it's going to be a very helpful conversation for someone who doesn't know all the intricacies of Upland and trying to still grasp what this metaverse is all about. Before I get into the questions, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it seems like you're doing a terrific job. So let's just happy to have this conversation. Hopefully, people find this useful as they make up their minds about this very first vote. I would just add again, it's easy to forget that we're celebrating kind of like the genesis of being even bringing forth the ability to consult with our community and take their feedback, not just as kind of like let's call it in a subjective manner, but an actual vote that shows us where the community stands in terms of different opinions about different subjects. So, first of all, I think it's good to celebrate that, and then whatever the outcome is, we're going to act accordingly.
Great. So you talked about this vote. So you actually opened up this proposal to all of the Uplanders who essentially have gone through the KYC process and own a Upland home and have designated that within the game. And you are opening up a vote to them. This is something that's very different than when we look and see what's happened recently with Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. He walks into the place with a kitchen sink and he's going and he's making lots of changes unilaterally and he owns the company and he can do that. Essentially, you guys could also do that, but you have decided to go a different route and not just make changes unilaterally, but say, we're going to present this to our community and we want your input. Why is that important to you guys?
Yeah, there are a couple of things there. I think, yes, you are correct that we do have the technical ability to make these unilateral changes. But I think there are a couple of things there. First of all, we're talking about Web3 communities. Community is the most important thing, right? So when we make very significant changes, we at some points would want to gauge basically the sentiment of the community, and at some points, get the community's also approval and buy-in. Uh, so the main reason why we're doing it is because this change that we are proposing, which is what we think is the right thing to do, the right thing for the long-term health of the economy, it does have some conflict with how it was portrayed originally in the white paper. And we take that very seriously, right? Because again, we don't just say things just to say them, right? We lay out our vision, we act upon our vision, and if we see that we need to make changes, especially when we've put it down in writing, black and white, for people to read and compile before they decide whether or not they want to participate in this economy, in this game, then if we make these changes that kind of like to some degree contradict what was in the white paper, we want to seek the community's approval, because if the approval is not there, we would try to think about other ways to do it.
Okay, great. Now, with this proposal, we're talking not just things that are going to happen in Upland tomorrow or next week or next month, but you are really talking about changes that are going to impact Upland very far down the line, and one of those being decentralization. Before we get into that, I want to ask about how Upland has really evolved. From the time you wrote this white paper, which was over 3 years ago, Upland started out as a property trading game. And from there, it has evolved to what we see now with a lot more things with legits and cars and homes and voting. And there's a lot more things. Some of the terms that you have mentioned in previous videos that you have been a part of and updates, things like layer 2 dev shops, real-time movement for your block explorer, interoperability, the STEM token, 3D avatars, and many other things. I'm not going to ask you specifically about all of those things, but how does all of this tie in to your long-term vision? And a vision is, the real anchor to what this game is. We see in the short term there being a lot of supposedly changes, and someone outside might come who came in looking at this as a property trading game is now seeing a lot more. So how does this encompass your dream of what you see Upland becoming?
Yeah, so you said correctly that we started out as a property trading game, but even in the earliest phases, and I think you were there in Genesis Week when we showed kind of like our original pitch deck, right? Which is
Yes.
absolutely legit. So you saw already there the vision that we are acting on was set in place from the earliest days, the earliest conception of Upland. Yes, we started out from just the ability to buy and trade properties, but ever since then, for the past 3.5 years, we've been diligently executing on that vision. And to be honest, we were fortunate enough to be able to do so. As you know, a lot of startups and companies have to pivot and make different changes throughout their evolution. We were fortunate to be able to actually, I think, both have innovative ideas bring into the table and also hit the market at the right time where, NFTs were becoming a thing. I don't know if you were there, but in the early stages of Upland, we did everything we could to hide the word NFT and blockchain because nobody understood what it was. And then at some point, the world turned to some sort of like a hype phase. So we brought that forward. Now there is a different sentiment. Again, we're going back to our bread and butter, but we've always been executing on that vision. And that is a metaverse that is mapped to the real world, that serves as some sort of infrastructure, like a layer one, or we call it sometimes the lobby of the metaverse. And that's your starting point to get different experiences, all tying into an open economy based on true ownership, and hopefully also progressive decentralization.
It's funny that you mentioned that you tried at the very beginning of the game to hide everything, all of these words like NFT and blockchain and those types of things. And when I joined Upland, this was in April of 2011, sorry,
21, I'm sorry.
2021,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I joined not as a gamer and not as a crypto person, but someone who wanted to learn more about Web3 and the blockchain and that. So I joined when you were not using these terms, so it's kind of funny from that perspective. But you did a good job of hiding it, and now it's very clear that you're pushing those things to the forefront to really talk about these innovative things that you want to that you are implementing. And part of a startup in the Web3 metaverse blockchain space is that everything is new, everything is innovative. And my next question really relates to how you go about doing this innovation. Can you explain a little bit about how it's done from the top down or maybe bottom up and how these things connect? At the very beginning and even throughout the city releases, I'm sure people who were there were some instances where there was a lot of frustration on the user part because things didn't work. And I come from an innovation background as well. I do this in my day-to-day job, and it's not easy. Can you kind of explain to some people what the difficulties you have in just innovating in this new spaces?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have to start by saying that we have a team of fantastic individuals that are making all of these things happen. And like you said, again, it's like there's no Google cheat sheet, right? There's no Stack Overflow to a lot of the things that we're doing because we are in some things, in some aspects, we are the very few or the only ones or the first ones to even attempt to do these kinds of things. I think what drives us, again, I think if you look at this space in general, there is a lot of room and a lot of players in the space that operate kind of like in the let's call it social prestige slash speculative type of engagement. And I think it has its place, it has its utility. It's not something that drives us as a company. We are more about trying to understand the value proposition. I mean, how did this all start, right? We took a look at the value proposition of the technology of blockchains and NFT and true ownership, and try to imagine, kind of try to understand technology. And I always say that once you understand it, it also comes with the realization that the future of digital economies is going in one direction, and that direction is true ownership. There's no turning back, because even if today NFTs is not the most intuitive technology for the average consumer to utilize, we strongly believe that in the future, any digital economy that matters to anybody will utilize true ownership and NFTs or some kind of permutation or evolution of that technology. So once you get that realization, it becomes, okay, how do I harness this technology, this innovation, this new technology that wasn't available to humanity before its inception? How do we translate that to value proposition to consumers? And then how do we get as many people as possible to kind of like enjoy and realize the value proposition, and then translate it into consumer products? And that, again, that ties together to to what we're trying to do, which is, in fact, just trying to build the largest digital economy, open digital economy that the world has ever seen. I know it's a lot to say, but this is what drives us as a mission. And I think, like, the more time goes by, the more you see the actual pathway of having achieved that type of a very, 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 very big, achievement milestone.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know, there's the saying, shoot for the stars and you might land on the moon. So it's very important to have a vision that is far enough away, but something that you can visualize a path towards. So that's really exciting to hear. It's nice to be on this journey, and I think all of us, all of the players who are, talking on Discord about this proposal and very, very engaged and very invested in it. It's something that's really important, as you mentioned, from the Web3 and community perspective. We might not all agree, but it's good that people are able to have these open discussions and really, really connect with each other.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the value proposition, and I understand the value proposition of Upland, but then you get into what you have said as Upland being the entrepreneur's metaverse. So, as an entrepreneur, every person has to find their own value proposition and how they fit within this metaverse and what they can provide to other Uplanders and to other people. You have mentioned on many occasions that we can expect to see that the property yields decreasing. And when that does, people's earnings within the game are also going to essentially decrease. So, what are some additional ways that you can envision in the future where us uplanders can replace those earnings right now with other things that they can do?
Absolutely. And again, I just want to maybe double click on one point here, that again, in order to enjoy and participate in the upland game and economy, you don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur, right? You can be easily consuming, the native game, or some other features and services and games that are put in place, or you could be, whatever, professional car racer, or manage a driving school, or whatever. The point is that we kind of like always treat Upland as a platform that provides different opportunities for different players to extract different types of value proposition. A value proposition could be just entertainment value, right?
Yep.
That's a decent, there's a whatever, a $500 billion industry of gaming today, where the only proposition that you get out of it is entertainment, and that's absolutely fine. That's a good value. To some degree, some of the other experience may be a mix of the two. So if I am, for example, again, if I don't have the means to be a developer, right, or create experiences, or I'm not a designer and I can't, design NFTs and produce them in Upland to be sold, I can still absolutely maybe run a car dealership, or I can run a fleet of semi-trailer trucks and provide services to other upland. That's another, term of, like, means of entrepreneurship. And the point here is that, again, when you go into these, it becomes clear that like, if you imagine two opposite sides, one is basically entrepreneurship and the other is entertainment. It's not a one or a zero, it's a gradient, meaning that if I am an imaginary, whatever, semi-truck fleet operator, right? When I go into Upland to maybe fulfill working orders or to kind of like, get try to get my hands on more cemetery trucks, or again, figure out what are the optimized routes for delivery for different items that I need to fulfill. Yeah, I'm doing it as a sort of entrepreneurship, but I'm also getting entertainment value out of it because maybe that's my escape for 30 minutes or an hour a day, kind of like getting from the real world to the metaverse and playing there. Because if it's not fun, if it's not immersive, again, it's not going to be as engaging. So again, I've always seen this kind of like thing as a gradient, not like a binary thing. Are you an entrepreneur or are you kind of like a gamer or getting entertainment out of the game? It's always a mix of the two, I think.
I think that that's what makes Upland really exciting, that you can come into this space and just like in the real world, you can do whatever you like. There are groups of people who enjoy dancing and groups of people who enjoy car racing, and you can come in and do everything theoretically. I think it's going to be very difficult to really get involved with everything, but absolutely we can see with these partnerships there are different niches and new niches that are going to bring in those communities, and communities will be built around that as well.
Absolutely. And that's why it was important for us to launch the developer tools, because even if we don't provide that as a value, as the core layer of Upland, you can always come and complement that with either a team of developers. Again, the barriers of kind of like developing experiences and developing games are going down and down each year we kind of like we progress. So it becomes easier and easier to develop games and experiences. And now we've also lowered the barriers of actually tying Web3 and NFTs and true ownership and an economy to it by just using RESTful APIs. So that makes it even easier for you to come in and complement. And if you come in with a good strategy to Upland, there's a lot of upside to be had. By basically taking whatever you had in mind as a value proposition, and I jokingly like to call it Web3fied, right? So like take an existing offering and make a Web3 offering out of it using Upland as a platform.
Great. I want to change now and talk a little bit more about decentralization. Upland is part of what was just announced and launched of the OMA3, Open Metaverse Alliance, and Upland is a founding member of that community. And your
And by the
co-founder,
way, that
Dirk, was nominated to be the first chairman. Is that correct?
absolutely
So
so.
can you explain to everyone a little bit about what uh, the Open Metaverse Alliance is and why it's important for Upland to be a part of it?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short because again I have my own kind of like views on the matter. If you consider okay, people often ask like you hear a lot the word metaverse, right? And there comes the question, what is the metaverse with a capital M? And the answer is it doesn't exist yet. So it's been envisioned in like science fictions and books and stuff like Snowcrest, etc. But it doesn't exist yet. What we have today is cyberspace. And in cyberspace, we have a lot of different, social tool, Web 2, Web 1 experiences, social media. There's also games and what we call metaverses with a small m, but they are not interconnected. To our point of view, the metaverse will start becoming a reality. It will be a subset of cyberspace, and it will be all of these worlds and games and metaverses with a small m that are interconnected in the way that you can carry your identity between one to another, and potentially also carry your assets as well, the things that you own between one world and another. And this is where it's going to start shaping up. Now, if you look at that subset, let's look into the future and think for a second the metaverse already exists. There's some sort of like the ability to carry your identity from place to place. Now, it's very clear that this will comprise both open and closed worlds, right? So if you take a look at, for example, Meta. So Meta today, that is a closed world, right? At least as of today. They will absolutely participate in the metaverse, but they may or may not be open. To our point of view, the most exciting part of the future, the metaverse with a big M, is the open part of it. And that's why we are a huge proponent of now establishing what are the standards that make interoperability possible. And we want to make sure that they are also built with concepts of true ownership and decentralization to some extent at least. Because to us, this is the most exciting part of the future of the metaverse. And again, it can take a lot of time. These things don't come easily and don't come kind of like very very quickly, but we want to make sure that we have these standards in place. And just putting together the standards themselves, that's something that could take years and years.
Very interesting. It's great to hear that Upland is becoming a leader in this space and really working with a lot of these other big names like Decentraland and the Sandbox and Dapper Labs. I think that's they're also involved.
I mean,
And
we had I think more than 1,000 companies sign up to OMA 3, and including Microsoft, etc. So there's a
oh
lot of
wow,
people coming in, and also OMA 3 is going to participate more like I think to some degree of confidence in an equivalent metaverse alliance that is happening. So again, we are not ignoring in any way any kind of like a standards group or efforts that are not necessarily based on Web3 or true ownership. The idea is to work together and collaborate towards the vision of the metaverse that's going to come in the future.
right. I compare this to a lot like social media. We say there's social media, but you have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn. And when we say that there's the metaverse, you're going to have Upland and Decentraland and Sandbox and many other ones that haven't yet been created. And people are going to find reasons to use multiple metaverses and also really move those assets just like you had described. So,
Absolutely, and our intention is, again, at least our ambition is that Upland becomes the de facto part of the metaverse that is mapped to the real world. So kind of like this non-fictional, right, side of the metaverse
mhm.
with a big M.
Great. So now if we start tying this in a little bit to the UIP, the Upland Improvement Proposal, and I quote here from the proposal that one of the goals is to position the community for further decentralization by empowering the community pool to fund the Upland operator. Can you take what we just discussed and talk about why this is important and why myself or an average player might want that? I can understand from Upland's perspective, but as someone who just owns, one property or I go and buy some legits, why is decentralization an important factor for me in the long term?
Yeah, so absolutely. And again, I may want to maybe rephrase a part of what you're saying is that I think what's most important for us is not necessarily, again, decentralization is not necessarily the end game of everything. It is one potential outcome that we want to kind of like maintain as a possibility. So we want to avoid making decisions and doing actions that would conflict with a potential outcome of decentralization. Now, why is it important? I think again, just go. We can go back to the white paper, right, and what we put in there. We've always envisioned. So, what happens today? Today we have a bit of a centralized approach where Upland Me Inc., which is the company that runs the Upland Metaverse, this is the operator, and the body that makes the macroeconomic decisions are the same entity. And that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not something that would promote a huge amount of trust in a very, very big economy. That's why, for example, in the United States, as one example, the central bank is separate from the government. These are separate entities, right? So separation in that aspect is good. And again, in our white paper, we always said that we envision the authority of being able to make economic decisions in the upland economy. We don't want that responsibility, right? We have to assume it right now because there was no other way than to start it in a centralized way. But we've always said that that part needs to be delegated out to an independent party. Now, it may be the case that the very first permutation of this is still a body that is independent but still centralized and just receives the authority just for the sake of separation. It may be the case that that body maybe gets elected by the community. So now you're starting to get the sense of what is self-governance in terms of that, right? So it's not necessarily that the community votes on everything, which although it may be some kind of outcome, it may also be the case that the community just elects that separate body, and it's kind of like more like a meritocratic system where the people that are qualified to make the decision gets elected and then make these decisions. But the important point here is that in the future we see a separation of that authority between the operator and basically that authority. Now, if you understand that kind of like vision, there has to be also the operator needs to lose the ability, the technical ability, right, to contradict any decision made by that central body. So this is where we come to where potentially what we studied in the white paper starts to conflict that notion, because if the operator maintains the ability to mint new apex to its private pool, that's where we start seeing a potential future conflict. And this is why one of the first things this means to achieve is that any new Apex that is minted is always minted to the community pool. Now, this realization brings another question. Okay, so now there's an operator running. How does that operator gain Apex that in order to be able to sell to the community and then fund its operations? Because let's face it, operations cost a lot of money. You have to, you have to pay salaries. You have to invest in infrastructure. You have to subsidize all the blockchain fees, right? Like Uplanders don't pay gas fees. Why is that? Like, it's very convenient, but somebody needs to pay for it, right? So the business model of the operator is always envisioned to be to sell Apex to the players because of demand for Apex. And now it becomes a question, okay, how does that Apex make its way to the private pool of the operator? And again, what makes sense the most to us is then the community pool. If you imagine a decentralized future where the community pool is kind of like the treasury of the entire Upland economy, that's how you compensate the operator by sending them Apex, which in turn they can then sell to community. It's a bit of complicated
It,
issue. I understand that, but again, we're seriously we're trying to make the right decisions for the future of this ecosystem, of this economy. And again, just because of the fact that there is some conflict with what was originally written in the white paper, that is why we are seeking the community's approval.
I was able to watch the video the other day of yourself and Dirk really talking in and going into a little bit more details and explaining this. And I encourage everyone to, first of all, read the proposal and watch some of these other videos as well. These are absolutely complex things. I'm not an economist. When I started creating YouTube videos for Upland, I did not necessarily see this situation where we're going to be voting on really important things, which first of all is really exciting and really important, but a lot of people are being pushed into positions of trying to really make sense of this new concept that are not simple things. Not everyone's an economist. Everyone has an opinion of what's the best way of not just running Upland, but I'm sure their local economy and whatever country that they live in. But it's really important to try and understand a lot of these things and simplify things. So it's a
Yeah,
difficult task for everyone at hand, I think.
yeah, and I've seen time and again. I saw it a lot come up where some players may not necessarily agree with our macroeconomic decisions, which is absolutely fine and a fair point and a point of discussion. But what I fear is that may translate then to kind of like making up your mind about what's the right thing with regards to this specific vote. And these are two basically separate things. I think like everybody who wants or kind of like who wants to be in on these decisions, right, who maybe disagrees with the macroeconomic decisions and they want to have their input, that's exactly what we're trying to work towards potentially in the future, to give that ability to weigh in on the macroeconomic questions, right? So again, it's a bit hard to compile, but again, our hopes are that we're able to make the information more palatable, so people can make conscious decision about what they think is going to be right for the Grand Upland economic ecosystem. And we'll see how this plays out over the next week or
Yeah,
two.
as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm trying to really get people to understand the big vision, because right now people are very excited about this upcoming announcement, the next city release, the next feature release, just flipping a lot of properties, and that's very short-term thinking. Now, this proposal that you're putting out, how much implication does this have in the short term versus the medium and long term?
I think there is not a lot of implication in the short term. Just because, again, the fact is that Upland is still centralized in terms of its macroeconomic decision making. That means that even if we were forced to print new Apex by guidance of the community, it doesn't mean we need to inject it into kind of like the circulation that is owned by player wallets. So that means that there's probably not going to be any short-term impact. Our concern is more the long-term impact of the ability to then in the future potentially take the route of further decentralization. And this is predominantly what's most about with this current vote.
So from that, is it safe to say that everyone who's talking about, the hopeful increase or potential decrease of property earnings has absolutely
Yeah.
nothing to do with this vote?
Absolutely, absolutely nothing with this vote. This will not change in any way the macroeconomic decision of what is the right earning volume in Upland.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Another thing, also because we're dealing with a lot of complex concepts, when we're talking about you talked about moving the OpEx in the proposal from the community pool into the upland pool. When I see people writing on Discord or Reddit or wherever that is, that you're taking money, the community pool is our pool. We are the community. In the future, if that is to be uh, sent over to our responsibility, then we don't want you taking from our pool. How do you respond to that?
So my response, again, just to in the risk of oversimplifying things, if we want to create a scenario where really, technically, and by no double standards, the community pool is our pool, right? The community's pool, and it's up for the community to decide what to do with it and how, then this is the only pathway forward, or some kind of like an equivalent permutation of it. So the reality today is that all of the Apex that is either in the Upland pool or the community pool is technically owned by Upland Me Inc. We hold the private keys, right? We are the technical owners of these pools. If we want to work to a potential future where the community actually can say and backed up with facts that this is ours, we feel that this is the best way forward. Because then the community will be empowered potentially, hey, maybe to decide who is the operator, right? Maybe it's not Upland Me Inc. for the rest of eternity going forward. Maybe there are several other operators that kind of like compete in order to provide the best value to this community. But again, it always goes back to the fact that the way that they're going to be compensated is using the Apex token. And this is exactly what lies at the heart of being able to move Apex from the community pool to the operator. Now, again, I want to maybe make another point clear. Yeah, so the question in hand basically is not whether or not Upland Me gets funded with Apex. This happens either way. It's a matter of how, what is the right mechanism of doing so that it's going to be sustainable for the future. And again, just repeating that from our macroeconomic perspective, there's absolutely no need at this point in time to mint new Apex tokens. There is sufficient Apex tokens to run the current size of the Upland economy. And moreover, there is more than sufficient funds in the community pool in relation to its size to the Apex held by user wallets, which is going to be the driving factor of the decision of whether or not to mint new Apex to the community pool in the hopes that the proposition gets adopted.
Fantastic. Um, we talked about the idea of decentralization, and one of the other goals for this UIP proposal is, again, and I quote, protect the integrity of the upland community by maintaining the current supply of UPEX. Can you explain in layman's terms what exactly is meant by that and what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and again, I have seen some remarks that I thought were unfortunate, like something like that Upland is fear mongering or something like that. That is absolutely not the case. The concern here is basically the original way that that Apex was to be introduced to the Upland pool, as depicted in the white paper, calls for the automatic minting of new Apex. So this basically, to our point of view, can create a situation where the Upland pool gets excessive in its sheer size of the amount of Apex that it holds. Our
And this is
concern
because
there,
when you're minting new UPEX, you're minting it equally to the upland pool as well
oh
as the
no,
community pool.
no,
No?
so that part was not, no, we are absolutely not going to mint. If this proposition gets rejected, we are absolutely not going to mint new Apex to the community pool. So the minting will only go to the Upland pool at this point, at least.
Okay.
Right? Because there's absolutely no reason to expand, to do monetary expansion on the side of the community pool, just because its size is currently huge in comparison to Apex in circulation. So basically, that means, again, going back to our concern, is that when in a potential future when the economic decisions are delegated to the community, our concern is that the sheer size of the community pool creates kind of like translates to decision making that causes the over injection of Apex into circulation. And then the risk that you have there is just the devaluation of the Apex currency. And this is our, let's call it, long-term concern and what we're trying to avoid.
Okay. Um, that was great. I've learned a lot in this discussion. Um, is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything else that I didn't cover that you think is really important for this discussion and for people to really understand where Upland is heading in the future?
I was maybe kind of like switching back the mic here and asking you what is the data points that you think are important for you personally to be able to make this decision, whether it's a yes or a no.
That's a really good question. I've been very active also talking with people on Discord, trying to understand their perspective. I know that you have had some conversations with a number of us content creators to also prepare us to help to explain what this is, because again, I'm put in a position, I don't have an economic background. I feel like I do have a good understanding of Upland, but I'm trying to make sense of all of this. And I think that the video that you and Dirk had created yesterday to clarify a lot of those things. Also, this video right here, and I'm there. You're getting ready for another town hall, which is going to be out before this video will be released. But I think just more discussions with you and more questions from other people will absolutely help because I think uh, Upland, there, as you mentioned, I think there's 300,000 landowners in Upland, if that's correct. And there's a very small section of those people in Discord or Twitter or wherever you happen to be. And
Right.
even within the people who are part of these platforms, there's a very small amount of those people who are extremely active and have passionate ideas about this. So we do need to hear from more people, I believe. And also, there's been a lot of discussion without you guys entering into the picture. And now, you guys, yourself and Dirk and the Upland team, now it appears that you are starting to enter into the discussion. And I think we have been waiting for this moment to really hear from the horse's mouth exactly whether it be debunking some of these myths or explaining, what we've talked about now. So, uh,
Absolutely, and the reasoning was, again, we wanted to literally hear what the community has to say. What are the concerns? What are kind of like the uh, what are the reasoning for people who think about voting no? What are the reasoning so we can address them? So again, it was always the intention to actually engage the community, put out as much information as we can, and then let people make the decision.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. It was really helpful. Hopefully, everyone else really enjoyed this as well. I have a lot of videos talking about the upland economy and essentially everything you need to know about upland, whether it be legits or cars or property trading or finding a basic strategy. And the vision that you are trying to explain helps me a lot to try and break this down because everyone comes into upland, as you said, for a different reason, and they need to really find their niche and what works for them. So I hope that my content is something that is able to help people to really find the direction that they want to head into Upland. So thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing you more on a lot of other videos and learning more about the economy and seeing how Upland progresses. This is really exciting time. Thank you, Idan.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate your time.